Hello and welcome to Salt to the Gamescast. This is episode 134. My name's Nick Naylor. Sitting across from me, Jared Olam.
Hey, what's up?
Fresh
Hi.
off of a plane a couple days ago.
Yeah. No, definitely got off of a few different planes. I've been traveling around a bit, Nick. I just got back from Chicago.
That's what I was trying to figure out because our schedule's a little weird this week. You went on vacation, recreational travel, and then immediately did you get back for?
I was back for like 2 days and then back out on the road. I went to Chicago. But yes, I did do some leisure travel out to San Francisco.
Nice.
Overcast San Francisco to spend some time with my family members that live there.
Was it overcast the whole time?
No, it was actually beautiful.
Okay,
It was really nice. It was like in the 70s and sunny and quite nice. But me and the girlfriend kind of just did not really touristy things, just like food, booze. Sure. It was a good time. So I brought some beers with me from one of the most popular breweries in San Francisco. It was founded in San Francisco. It's called 21st Amendment. I believe they have like 3 or 4 locations now in San Francisco and then like the Bay Area specifically. But their original location is about 2 blocks away from Oracle Park where the Giants play. So they're it's a Giants brewery essentially. Sure. We went right before a game. So it was pretty cool because there's just like,
packed.
Yeah, it's packed. Big space though, really big. Just packed full of Giants fans getting drinks and food before the game. So
is that literally a giant scoreboard on the art of that can? I think it is.
Yeah, it's a scoreboard that says SF21 LA 0. Obviously, okay. They don't like the Dodgers. So this beer right here is called Dodgers Tears. Which is pretty funny. They had to like change the spelling of Dodger, probably to avoid getting sued. But yeah, Dodgers Tears is a pretty good name. And it's a hazy IPA, 6.6% alcohol. This is like a limited release as far as I understand from them. I don't like this beer very much. It's just like, it's too hoppy. And I know it's an IPA. But this one in particular just is not doing it for me. But I do really love the can. I couldn't resist. Sure. And then I brought another one over there that is in their core range that they make all year round, I believe. And what is the name of that one?
Brew Free or Die?
Yeah.
I think that's the name. Yes. Brew Free or Die. Kind of a terrible name, but this is a good beer.
Yeah, it's got Abe Lincoln and also Mount Rushmore with all of them doing drugs, it seems like, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, they lean, pretty heavily into the 21st Amendment stuff. But cool place and some really cool vibes there. I would recommend it. It seems like the most popular. The reason why we got turned on to it is one of my family members' friends that we met up with, he brought a bunch of these beers to a park that we were hanging out at. And I was like, what the fuck are these? And I didn't end up getting one because we brought our own stuff. And I didn't want to be like, hey, let me bum a beer from you, guy.
Hey, guy.
That I just met.
Your last one?
Yeah. But people love that shit in San Francisco. So I think that it is pretty cool. We also did a couple of different smaller bars and stuff like that. Some very cool vibes. We went to a medieval themed bar. So that was a fucking thing.
With knights and swords and shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So joust?
There was no jousting, unfortunately, but there was just dragons, like dragon statues.
Nice.
It was a weird, but also kind of awesome place.
Yeah. Like really dark?
Very dark, yeah. And like the lighting were like old timey
torches.
Torches, but they weren't real torches, but they were like faux torches.
You can get those flicker light things that you just light the flickers.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. In like a basin that was like very old school. But then they had like suits of armor, which were kind of cool in there, like a bunch of them like lined up. And I was just like, that seems like a fucking liability. Who is grabbing a broadsword after one too many Red Bull vodkas and start swinging that bitch around? They must have it like
It's just,
JB welded to the whole thing or something like that.
It's part of the risk of going there. You sign a liability. It's like, listen, shit happens at this place.
Yeah.
The bouncers, they're in armor.
Yeah.
They're
It was pretty cool. Like, it wasn't too over the top where like the bar staff were like dressed in like theme appropriate attire. That would have been too much for me. They were just people. But the bar, I think it's pretty fucking old as well.
I think it would be so funny if the bartender, he's got to go muddle and it's like clank, 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 clank. Yeah. He walks over to go get the law.
He's like,
mint. Or he's like,
he's got a mace hanging out of his back pocket that's just like banging against the wall.
I mean, if you're going to do it, like commit.
Yeah. Completely random that we found that place as well. We were just walking. We got some bad information. So my family member was like, they live in the suburbs of San Francisco.
Yeah.
So they weren't with us like earlier in the day, Saturday when we were there. And she was like, you got to go to this one bar. It's incredible. It's the fucking best. She's like, I love it. It's my favorite place in the city. And she's like, so this is the address and you need to go to it. And like, then we'll meet up with you after you're done at that bar.
Did you think the medieval one was it? You're like,
no.
why did she lead us here?
No. So the bar that she recommended was in a hotel, like a really nice hotel.
Yeah.
The problem is that San Francisco is a very hilly area, incredibly hilly, and it was like on the cusp of like we would feel dumb getting a fucking Uber to go this distance from where we were staying, so we're like, let's just hoof it, and we hoofed it, and it was fucking intense, like a lot of hiking up those hills. I don't understand how people can live in that city with some of that shit's crazy.
It's not a cool. My wife and I really like to walk when we're in cities, right? It's like, oh, it's a mile away, like whatever. But it doesn't work there. When we were there, you're just like, what? It's the incline on some of those hills. And you're just like, absolutely not. So,
we had to stop. Like, let's fucking make a break stop right here in the middle of our journey because we were like winded by halfway up this hill. So this is a massive hill, right? So we get to the top and the fucking bar is closed. We get up to the top and we're like, yeah, we want to go to the bar. Is there like a special way to get to the bar? And the guy's like, that shit doesn't open until 4. And it was like 11 o'clock in the afternoon or in the morning. So we were like, sweet. Awesome. So then we went to Plan B, which was medieval bar that was somewhat close. So yeah, great city, great time there. Hopefully can go back at some point in time. I think my family members are kind of weighing whether or not they're going to stay in the area, and they might move to a different part of California. So if that's the case, that'll also be all right because.
Yeah. Did you get any good cocktails while you're out there?
Yeah. We definitely got some good ones. There's a couple of bars we went to. One that's like really close to my girlfriend's work building called Louis. And it's like in the middle of like this very dodgy, sketchy alleyway. And you would not know that it's there if you weren't looking for it. Like signage is not big or anything like that. But really cool kind of like cocktail bar. And we got some good stuff during that period. But it was just kind of a whirlwind. It was a fast trip.
I really like San Francisco. I've only been there a few times, probably only 4 nights total. My main issue, which is not shocking to anybody, is that I'd probably even say, hey, I'd live there. You got to have a weird amount of money to do the things I'd want to do that they have there that are awesome. Because when I've gone there and like we've gone to bars and dinner, it's crazy. It's just crazy expensive.
Oh yeah.
Like sure, for a night or two, you're like cool. But if you're there every day, it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe there's other places and stuff. But it just seems like that's the draw. That's their deal.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to get dim sum while we were there because obviously big Asian population in San Francisco. And I think, most people agree that San Francisco and probably Vancouver are two of the best spots for Chinese food in North America. So we did some research, and I also talked to my cousin, and she gave me a couple of recommendations for dim sum places. So my girlfriend and I went to one that was like really highly rated. And we didn't get a lot because we were planning on like just kind of taking it easy. It was delicious. It was great food, but Um, it cost me $160, Nick.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, this is not, like, I can go get dim sum in Salt Lake City and it'll cost me like literally half of this. And so it's like kind of hard.
That shit's just frustrating. Like, to a lesser extent, like we skied a little bit this year, and you go into the lodge and just get shitty lodge food, like a burger. It's just, you know what it looks like, right? And
yeah,
burger, chicken fingers we shared, and maybe 2 beers, and it was like $75, and you're just like, what? Like,
yeah,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, times are bad.
You handed me a can. You didn't even.
Yeah, exactly. I've also been in airports a lot lately, and that's a fucking racket, I'll tell you. Man, I just like, I'm like, how hungry am I? Can I make it home to eat? Because the prices are goddamn outrageous, dude. I did find a place that was reasonably priced this time in the Chicago airport in O'Hare. The food was like, I mean, it was like Chicago food, you know, they had like pizzas and like Italian beef sandwiches and stuff like that. Good stuff. Yep. You know, not things that you wouldn't find at like a baseball field, but it wasn't that bad. But most of the time, like I go through Denver a lot and it's like, oh, I just need to get a quick sandwich. And they're like, that'll be $24. And you're like, what?
Like, what are we doing? It's just outrageous. You're going to Chicago now for work. I don't think you've mentioned it, but yeah, I've got homework for you.
Okay.
I just you just need to go to Illuminated. Like, we get that stuff in here for whatever reason, and I've had quite a few of them. I think they're good. I think you need to go check it out. You need to go fill up a suitcase with one of everything they have and bring it back. So
I will do my best. We I tracked down the Malort this time. I saw it at the airport.
At the airport.
Yeah, they sell it at the at duty free. You can get Jepson's. I forgot that it's attached to a man's name. Who the fuck Jepson is? Jepson's Malort is what it's called. I'm like, you really did a fucking bad thing, Jepson.
So we're gonna have Malort on this podcast.
That is gonna happen, yes.
Somewhat near future.
Yeah. It's in a plastic bottle as well.
Great.
But it's not expensive. It's like, you know, $15. I'm sure that it's a little bit more pricey outside of duty free, but you know, it's happening. I'm getting that fucking Malort.
You're gonna get Malort. We're gonna try it before the break, not on the show. And then we will make a cocktail after the break with it, and just see what we can. We're gonna.
There's got to be something that can make Malort redeemable.
We're gonna fully absorb this thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not a lot of huge games really on the horizon. We've got Hellblade coming out next week, but like this last little run, we've kind of had some time to just kind of see what's out there. And I randomly had just seen something on the old internet about Animal Well, and people are really high on it. Like just the general chatter from a lot of like review sites and stuff is just like, hey, this thing's really special. So I was like, all right, like whatever. It's essentially Metroidvania puzzle like game, I guess. The graphics are extremely basic. I think it's made by one guy.
Yes. Yeah, the backstory is the publishing arm of this whole process is owned by a YouTuber by the name of Video Game Donkey. He's very prolific YouTuber. A lot of people love him. He's got millions and millions of subscribers, and he makes videos on games essentially. And he's pretty funny. I don't mind his content. He has got this voice, and I don't know if it's like an intentional voice or if it's like, this is just my voice, but his voice really gets on my nerves. Okay, so I have a hard time watching his stuff regularly. But he's done a lot of good things, and generally it seems like people really like him. And yeah, so he's got a publishing company now, and this is the first game that they have published. I have seen a lot of people online saying Donkey made this game, and that is not the case.
That's not true.
Donkey just owns the publishing company that this game is under, essentially. So but I believe you are right that it's one dude that and also very interestingly, he developed like a proprietary engine to run the game, and that is one of the reasons why the file size is like 30 so small.
Like, it is nothing.
So from like a technical perspective, that's pretty cool that he went through that process to make such a small file size.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of what I saw online was like, hey, just go in blind, just go in and start playing it. And so that's what I did. And real quickly, I mean, you kind of understand what this thing's doing, which is gives you no information, and you got to go work out puzzles and abilities and how things work. And you might get an ability that you need to organically learn some tricks with that thing. And the game really does not show you how to do that. So I really think this is only a game, only certain types of sick individuals are drawn to this type of thing. You can draw comparisons between this and Tunic, but I think Tunic's quite a bit better in my opinion. But I've played quite a bit of it. Where did you have you played it?
I played a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm almost done with it.
I have seen credits, but you're not done at credits.
Yeah, I haven't seen credits yet, but I'm fairly certain I'm close to seeing credits. Yeah, I mean, I am on the opposite side of the spectrum. I think this is a lot better than Tunic.
Interesting.
I mean, I didn't like Tunic, and I do like this game, but that does not mean that I am as high as it seems like a lot of people are on this game, even saying that. I think this game is good. I do not think that it is exceptional. I do not think that it is this, revelatory, insane thing that people seem to be making it out to be a lot of times from what I've read.
I'm right there with you. I don't fully understand now that I've played it, gotten past credits and played quite a bit after credits. I don't understand people losing their mind. It doesn't like when I say Tunic did more revelatory things, like whether you like them or not, it did some bigger minded things than this does. The part of what I really kind of don't like, or what I like a lot of it, and I solved a lot of puzzles like on my own in a reasonable amount of time.
Mhm.
But there's kind of a few combinations. Like it's not very easy to move around within the world. There is fast travel that you get unlocked, but that's not super easy to even access.
Yeah,
once
it's
you
like
get that
a
either.
room.
Yeah,
It's a room that you can use to fast travel.
and it does become to be helpful, but
But you guys still get to that room.
Yeah,
And if you're on the other side of the map, there's no easy way to get to it.
So like one of my biggest complaints on this is, it's the type of game where if you're spending a lot of time looking at a guide, you might as well stop playing the game, because like that's the whole point of the game is to figure this stuff out. So there was times where I'm just like, well, I don't think I have what I need to do this puzzle. So now I just need to go look at my map and just go back and search and go back and look under every fucking thing I can find. And that was it just felt a little tedious as I worked through those things. I didn't really like the feeling. And sometimes I just felt like it needed a little more, we'll call it handholding or something, like some sort of direction on some of it, because it doesn't even like I don't know if there is a sequence, like you can sequence break. It'd be interesting for me to write down the order of how I got the tools compared to you, because they're not necessarily like some of them. Absolutely. Hey, you got to have this one to get there, but others aren't quite like that.
Right.
And it just, my trajectory here is I was pretty high 2-3 hours in. I was like, I'm really having like, this thing is neat. And then it kind of is just a downward graph. And after I hit credits, I was like, all right, working towards the end. And then it became clear to me that I wasn't going to be able to get the final ending without going to the internet. And then I was just like, nah, that's not what I want to do. And I put it down and said, that's enough. I enjoyed what it did. And I think that it's really kind of incredible. Like anytime you play one of these things and it's like, yeah, one guy made it. It's like, that's fucking crazy. And good for him.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of positives that this thing is doing, in my opinion. I think, visually, even though it's very, dated and kind of like old school in its execution, I think that there's some visual elements of this game that are really nice. I also like the sound design. It's good. I think that it works well. There isn't really a lot of music in this game, but there is like some vibey sounds, I guess is the best way to describe it, because you're in this fucking well with all these random animals that either are like your friend or want to kill you. And so it's just strange. And there's no like, explanation of what is going on. You are a little, you look like Meatwad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and you come out of a fucking flower at the beginning of the game. And then it's just like, go solve puzzles with these animals, and that's the
It's
game. You know what I mean? But the things that I really liked about it, yes, like I think the puzzle design for the most part is pretty good. I don't think that it is not intuitive either. Like some of it requires you to kind of come back later, you know, just like any other Metroidvania would do. But I didn't find myself like really like, what do I do here? And if I did get to that point, I just moved on to something else.
my criticism there was a lot of Metroidvanias. There are ways that you can realize you don't have the tools, and this game's not actually like that. Sometimes you just might not know how to use the tool
True.
to do it, and that was a little bit of a piece of frustration for me.
Yeah.
Because then I'm just like, I don't even know, because I don't know how many tools there are. I don't know if I'm missing a tool.
Yeah, I do like the tools that they give you. I think the highlight for me of the game is the slinky puzzles and the slinky using the slinky. I don't know. That's probably just my bias because I loved like as a child just like getting to a big flight of stairs and flipping that bitch down the stairs and watching it go. Endless hours of entertainment there. But there's some really cool implementation of slinky in puzzles where you have to kind of, it almost works like a plinko machine almost, like where you've got to, you know, navigate this little area to hit like buttons essentially with the slinky. So I really enjoyed those. I thought that those were like well done and good. And I think generally speaking, most of the puzzles in this game, once you get to a solution, you're like, that feels good. The ones that I do not feel good about are anything that revolves around platforming or going really fast in this game, because I just don't think that the mechanics are there. They're not tight enough for some of the stuff that this game requires you to do from a platforming perspective.
You've been chased by the dog cat thing.
Yeah.
And you've done the where you have to run from him for quite a while.
Yes. Yeah.
That took me a bit.
Yeah.
That took me quite a few tries.
Yeah. No, there are numerous examples of me struggling. There's the dog that like, it might not be the same one that you're talking about, but the dog that can get into like the really tight spaces. And
that guy's funny. No, I'm talking about the huge ethereal thing.
Yeah. I've seen that as well.
You come back to it.
Gotcha.
And because the first time you run into it,
with the frisbee, right?
You can put the fake frisbee.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're gonna need spoilers, but eventually you're gonna need that, and you got to go for a run.
Gotcha.
And you're probably gonna be pretty mad because it took me at least 30 minutes of resetting and trying to do stuff.
Yeah, I just think that the platforming is just not quite where it needs to be. There is this level of frustration that crops up because the little meatwad character, he's kind of slippery. So when you jump and you land, there'll be like a moment where he moves like ever so slightly after landing, and it's like, why is that a thing?
It's like floating the wrong way.
But just let me land and then that's it. You know what I mean? We don't need to bring anything else in. And the game really cranks up the difficulty in terms of the platforming. There are some puzzles that require you to go through these like gates essentially very, very quickly. And the platforming is just not tight enough. And so there is a level of frustration where you're like, I know what to fucking do with this puzzle. Like, it's just like I'm a pixel or so off and it fucks everything up. So not great from that perspective. I think it needs to be better there. And then another criticism I have is like just the implementation of the items. Like I said, I like the items, generally speaking, but they don't get the same level of limelight in my experience. Like some of them you seem like you use a lot and other ones you're just like, I got this. Like the frisbee is a good example of that. Like you don't often use the frisbee. There are like some niche usages of it, of like switches that are like tucked away and are only accessible by throwing the frisbee at it. But then if you compare it to like the bubble wand, which you're using constantly, or the yo-yo, which you use a lot as well, it just doesn't feel like that's balanced out well enough in my experience.
For sure. I completely agree. You end up getting a spinning top, and I've read that it digs somehow, but I don't fucking know what tiles it digs on because I never did it, but that's like I think it's more end game stuff.
So here's a fun thing that I did, because I was kind of stumped on one in particular platforming section, and it was just like inaccessible area, but it seemed like the game like clearly wanted me to go that way because I had like kind of checked boxes. I was like, yeah, I've done this. I'm pretty sure I need to go over here. And I couldn't figure out how to get to the area that I needed to go. So I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to go and look and figure out how to do this. Right. So I go online and I look up. Also, very little.
Kind of hard to find stuff online.
That's
for
what
this
I was
game.
It's not a lot online where you're like, if you type in like crane puzzle or something like that, nothing comes up and you're like, oh, why?
You can find a walkthrough, but then you got to like manually try to like find. I had the exact same problem on different things where I was just like, literally, it took me a while to even find a list of like, how many fucking tools do I get? You're just not getting the results. It's wild.
It's very straight. I don't understand why that's a thing. like are we ascending to this level of gatekeeping where like people are like, I'm not going to put out any fucking content for this thing because like this is the way you got to discover this stuff organically. And it's like, but like sometimes I don't want to. Like I my rule of thumb is I'm going to try to solve it myself, but I'm not going to just bang my head against the wall forever to try to figure something out. So anyways, I found a speed run of the game. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just, scrub through this until I get to a point where I know, I'm at and that I'm trying to figure out. And the person implemented the bubble wand in a way that I was like, not even aware was possible. And so like, at first I was like, so I've just been using the bubble wand completely wrong because like I would send a bubble, get on it, and then make a jump. This person was getting on a bubble, creating another bubble, jumping it on the bubble, and then going all the way up to like really high points. And so I was on a plane and I spent fucking like an hour trying to figure out how to do it. I couldn't do it. And so I was just like, what the fuck is wrong? Like, what am I doing? Then I found out that it's like an exploit and it's not intended. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So they're probably doing some weird shit with their fingers to get it to work. And for all I know, it might've been patched out by now because it's kind of like fundamentally breaking the game in ways that I don't know if this guy intended it for it to do. So that was a little frustrating. So yeah, like there's things like that where it just feels uneven and a little unpolished, I would say. But overall, I have enjoyed my time with this game. Will I finish this game? I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot coming out in the next little bit, especially from like a mobile perspective, where you can play this on a Steam Deck or on a Switch and have a good time. Here's another fun thing that happened with my Switch. This is not anything to do with Animal Well specifically. Yeah. This has happened a couple of times with my Switch, and I cannot figure out what's going on with it. But if I have downloaded software, like if I have a physical cart, it's no problem. Yeah. But if I don't have an internet connection, the Switch sometimes will just be like, you can't play this game.
Great.
Like, nope. So like I was on a plane.
That works great for what your life is right now. Traveling every other week.
The Switch is just like checking if the software can be played. And then it's like, you need an internet connection. And it's like, no, I fucking don't. I downloaded this game. I specifically made sure that the console was updated when I had access to a fucking internet connection. So the game is updated as well. So why are you doing this to me, Nintendo? It makes no fucking sense. And like, obviously I think that it's like a hardware glitch or something like that. There's obviously some sort of authentication that is going on that it's not checking correctly. The one thing that I could find was that you got to make sure that your Switch, whatever Switch you're playing on, is your primary Switch for your account. And I'm like, that makes sense. But for me, I only have one fucking Switch. So that's not a consideration because it's always been my primary Switch because I only have fucking one. So
this is your second one though, right?
Yes, but I merged everything and got it taken care of after when I initially got it. So it drives me nuts. Yeah. And like it's intermittent. Sometimes like it works just fine. Like Animal in particular on the trip out to Chicago, played it on the plane, no problem. Banged my head against the wall trying to figure out the bubble jump thing that I just highlighted. Then get on a plane the next day to come back to fucking good old Salt Lake City, and my Switch is like, nah. nope, you can't play this game right now. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, what is happening?
That's not.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any. I mean,
it makes no sense.
No.
Anybody out there that knows the solution to this problem, please let me know. Please.
I mean, initially I was like, well, maybe there's some games that just require an online connection, even though they shouldn't. But that's not the case.
Like Animal
World. Animal World absolutely.
There's not a lot of interconnectivity in the game.
I don't think Animal World knows about the internet.
So yeah, I don't know that. Again, that's not on Animal World. I think that's just a weird thing on the Switch. But yeah, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people obviously comparing it to Tunic because I didn't get far enough in Tunic because I think it sucks to understand this. But
how dare you?
I'm sorry, I don't like it. Like I tried hard, but like everything about it is like right up my alley, except for the bullshit puzzles that drive me nuts. Like in Animal's execution of puzzles, I rarely got frustrated and was like, no, this is not for me. Like it's doing puzzles in a way that I enjoy. Tunic does not do that, but for the most part, some of them are good. But I've seen people say like the metaphysical aspect of like some of the harder puzzles in Tunic were like never designed to be solved by yourself, and you were supposed to rely on a community of people to solve them. And no, fuck no. Yeah. I've seen people say the same thing about this.
That's like Fez, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Which I have not played. I've played like 10 minutes of Fez. Probably should just to kind of check that box, play more, because I'm pretty sure that game does some interesting things.
What's that guy's name?
Jonathan that's not Jonathan Blow.
No, it's Phil Fish, I believe.
Yeah, he straight up just quit. They were making Fez 2, and some people were mean to him on the internet, and he said it's canceled.
He seems like a bit of an asshole, to be honest with you.
He's being an asshole, not making video games. So.
No, I don't like that. I mean, certainly I'm not trying to like dissuade people from like building community around video games and like sharing their experiences, and that's a good thing. Yeah. But if you as a developer are like, I'm going to make this so fucking hard that the only way you can figure this out is if you go on to a forum and talk to other people, it's like, no. Like that doesn't make sense to me. And I've also heard like, a lot of people, because, as much as you said, like people are really into this game, and that's absolutely true. I mean, it's generally favorable reviews across the board. There are a lot of people that are kind of in our camp with this, where they do not like it as much as other people are saying. And then the counter argument to that from these people that are really in love with it is like, you just don't get it. You're not seeing how deep this thing really is. Like the puzzles are secondary to like the overarching puzzle that the game is presenting you with, and you really have to dig into it. And it's like, cool, man, like that's good that you feel that way, and like far be it for me to shit on that, but like again, no.
Yeah, I'm like Torrin, right? Like those people that really enjoy those things, like that's great for you. But like this, anytime something like this comes up, even in games that only do it a little bit, it drives me crazy. Like From Software does it to get like the final boss in a lot of their games, where it's just like, I'm gonna fucking figure that out. I need the eyeball and the scrotum and the leg, and I gotta mix it all into like
you need the goddamn chicken bone.
It's where, to me, it's like it's not reasonable for me to figure it out on a first playthrough, and then it's like, well,
I just think
that's great for you guys. Like,
I don't think that's well thought out game design, in my opinion. No. Like, I just don't. I guess like I could definitely hear arguments to the contrary, advocating for that position. And there's people out there that probably could come up with a really good argument.
It's probably that you don't have to do it. You don't have to do that shit in the From games. You can just go beat them and get the medium ending.
The medium
or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
I would like the mild ending, please. I don't like it to get too spicy. I have stomach issues. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, that's fine. Like that's. I mean, that's probably the most logical argument. Yeah, you just don't have to do it. That's not the way I work. Like,
Yeah,
I have to do it. Like especially if I'm invested in a game, I'm gonna fucking do it. And so you putting these barriers in place to prevent me from just figuring that out organically is frustrating because like it would be hard for you to come up with an argument that you could present to me saying that it's better to not figure out things organically in video games, like on your own. Discovery and the wonder that comes from those kind of like aha moments that video games can provide to the player. I think those are really fucking good and one of the strongest elements of the medium. So to say like, well, you're not going to figure this out on your own, so you just got to go online and figure it out. Like that's not satisfying in the same way. So I don't know. I think that it like tarnishes like what can be otherwise considered like great masterpieces of games. Like why?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm glad I played it. I don't think I will play anymore. I don't think I'm gonna go and stare at a guide to 100% this thing. I just don't see the purpose of that. I don't think I would get any. I would just become lower and lower on the game if I do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine with where I'm at for now.
I think that it's a cool thing. Hopefully this guy makes more things because obviously this is a great first outing. Maybe he has made other things.
He spent like 6 years. No, this is his first game and he spent 6 years on it. So
it's a long time.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, it's when you think about one person, it's a pretty big game to,
yeah.
I don't know if he's working on an hour a day or, who knows?
Yeah, who fucking knows? But yeah, it seems like we see these kind of like phenomenon games every year now where it'll be like, I made this in my basement
for sure
by myself, that, kind of light the world on fire. And that's a good thing to see. You know what I mean? It's great. I mean, I love that, especially in a time period where there is like a lot of really bad things going on in video game industry with, these mega corporations laying people off left and right because they can't justify the budgets that these large games have. And
should we talk about that? We can talk about that.
Yeah, it's just like that. That's very frustrating because it's like, yeah, you can just have a guy that made it at his mom's house for like $68 and a chicken sandwich, and it blows up and gains more critical appeal than some of your big fucking $60 gajillion video games. So
I was gonna bring it up at the end of the show, but I think we can just talk about that. In the news, things are not great in the video game industry. Basically, like we're getting, I think it's a little frustrating because we're getting really pretty good products. Like we're getting good games on a pretty steady clip. Like there's usually something you can go out and check out, but they aren't necessarily performing to the level required by publishers. And you're just seeing an enormous amount of layoffs across the entire field. And it's been happening for at least 6 months or so. Seems like this year is going to be probably one of the worst in recent memory in probably at least 10 years. And it's really disheartening because Microsoft is the one that's getting a lot of heat right now for it. They closed one of the Arcane Austin.
Yeah.
They closed Arcane Austin. Now, that one, I listen, like, you don't know everything that's happening in the background. I can at least understand that one a little more because the last game they ever released was Redfall. So I can draw a straight line of Redfall did terribly and it was pretty poorly received and the studio got closed.
That's still shitty though.
Oh, I'm not saying it's justified. I can draw a line, right? I can draw a line and say, I understand why that happened. That doesn't mean that the reason Redfall is shitty is on the people that made it. Fault. Right. That could easily be that could still be on the higher ups.
Absolutely.
Within. So
it's also just sorry to cut you off, but it's also like just ignoring a studio's previous work. And we're like a really weird, I mean, obviously, money is king and it's always going to be king in this industry. But like we're in this weird space where a studio like Arcane Austin, produced Prey, which people fucking love that thing. And you're just like, well, they could make another one of those, but no. And like some of those people will probably go to Leon and who knows what the future holds. But like that's bad. That is a bad thing.
I think that what really looks bad when you talk about it is it Tango GameWorks? Is that what they're
Hmm.
called? So uh, they released a smaller scale, whatever you want to call it, double A in Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
That game stealth released. Microsoft got to show up and do a press conference, and then it probably bookend. I'm not sure if it was at the end or whatever, but they said it's out today, and that game's really cool. I played probably half of it. I liked quite a bit of it until there's a parry mechanic, but like it did a lot of good things. It got a really good reception.
Hmm.
Microsoft, people like Microsoft guys are on Twitter saying, yeah, it met all of our key objectives, and you're saying all this stuff and then you go and fucking close them. And it's like, well, so what exactly was supposed to happen there? Like you
Yeah.
stealth released a game with there's no marketing. It goes straight to Game Pass. That
Right.
is a game that was meant to sustain Game Pass. That was
Right.
the goal of it.
There was no
Uh,
physical release for that
and
game when it came out either. It was like direct to Game Pass. I'm pretty sure you could buy it if you didn't have Game Pass.
sure.
But like a game not performing well from a sales perspective, and then you close the studio because of that is very gross because it's like, of course, it wasn't going to sell well.
That one just does not. That is real bad. It looks really, really bad for Microsoft to close that studio.
Yeah.
with that being their last game,
For sure.
and generally that game being something extraordinarily interesting and pretty compelling in a lot of ways.
People liked Evil Within a lot as well. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but it definitely had its fans.
Yeah.
And the second one in particular,
People liked it more, I think. On the
people
second one, yeah.
really liked the second one a lot. And I think that one's interesting from the perspective of like there's probably a lot behind the scenes in terms of the appetite of the studio in Japan, because Mikami left, right? He just said, fuck it. Like I'm done after Hi-Fi Rush came out. And now went and started his own studio, right? Is a new studio. So the fact that he left is interesting. And there might've been something behind the scenes that pushed Microsoft to close the studio, because I mean Mikami was like the leader and the reason why people bought games from that studio for sure. But it still sucks, and it doesn't make sense from the perspective of being like, this thing did gangbusters for us and we're super happy that it was received so favorably, and then they're like, yeah, we're gonna fire all of you guys.
And it just Microsoft has enjoyed pretty high general just how the public has perceived them in the we'll say the last 4 or 5 years. Like with Game Pass, they've been getting a lot of pretty good press.
Yeah.
Despite not having really great games, but they've had pretty good press, and I feel like that over from the last 6 months, that turned on a dime, and I think they're in some trouble because people are just now pissed at them.
Yeah.
And
people are turning on Phil Spencer.
And they're basically like questioning Game Pass. They're going to come out and say that COD's on Game Pass in like a day. So that's probably going to help that situation. But they need some wins. And then in like 3 days, Hellblade 2 comes out. And you tell me, I mean, they're not exactly like Tango, but man, they're not that far off. Like,
definitely not.
Of the type of style. The only thing they do a little different is they are absolutely a research firm that's doing some tech stuff for Microsoft that could basically
prevent them from getting closed.
Basically, because they're pushing the bar in ways that they can go to Microsoft and Microsoft can say, "Wow, this is pretty impressive."
But also, I would not be shocked if an article came out saying they just shut down Ninja Theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it wouldn't be a shocking thing. I mean, it would be a terrible thing, obviously, because I think those guys, especially because Hellblade is fresh in my mind after coming off playing that.
We're talking about in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Like they're doing exceptional stuff over there, and so. It's just like this gross consolidation and being super risk averse in ways that just don't work for video games, right? Like I understand, like you have your cash cows, you spent the billions of dollars required to acquire all of these big box IPs that are going to bring in a lot of money, and for people that maybe are only playing 2 games a year, like the 2 games of the year that they play, Microsoft owns one of them, and it's going to make them a lot of money from that, right? But just from a perspective of like a fan of just like the broader video game industry, seeing all these companies, not just Microsoft, but all of these companies across the board, just getting super risk averse to trying new things, being innovative and doing new and interesting things. Like, it is getting kind of dystopic from that perspective, because I feel like we're starting to see less and less new ideas come out of these companies because they don't make the same amount of money and they're just a bigger financial risk. But it's like, inherently, in my opinion, the industry is a risk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And really what it boils down to is, how competent are the people that you have in the places of power at your company to make these decisions, right? If you've got the right people in place that are making the right decisions, you're always going to make mistakes. But I feel like you could mitigate some of those mistakes and put out new things that appeal to people, that are going to sell well. But as it stands now, they have, largely rejected that thought process and are just like, let's just put out what people buy, and that's just going to be video games, and that's grim and shitty.
Absolutely. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we're done. I don't think we're done hearing about closures this year.
No fucking way.
It's going to probably keep going, and it's going to be a rough year.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to impact. I mean, games take a real fucking long time to make these days. So, but eventually you're probably going to see that impact on these AAA games that it seems like they're just pulling back on.
Absolutely.
Because they're so goddamn expensive.
So many.
Fast forward in 3 years, and we just might have, this just might look a little different for what kind of games we're talking about on the show.
For sure. There's so many games that are, getting canceled internally. Mm-hmm. I'm sure ones that we are not even aware of that have been canceled before they've even been announced. And that's shitty. That sucks.
Yeah.
Square Enix just came out and said that they are realigning. And I think that a lot of these companies are realizing this. So we're kind of coming at this like critical mass point, in my opinion, where a lot of these companies are realizing that this console war does not work for their bottom line, right?
Sure.
And having your game on as many platforms as possible is how you're going to make money. Yeah. And no amount of like exclusivity money that you're getting from Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo is really going to make up for the shortfall of not having the ability to put your game out on multiple platforms. So Square Enix has come out and said, and they've been historic for like, doing, exclusivity deals. And I think, now we're going to start seeing a lot of these companies saying like, we're not doing fucking exclusivity deals. Like,
everywhere.
We're going to put it on every fucking thing, which is good for people like you and I who have access to everything, PC, namely, because that's where you want to play these games. If they're going to come out on PC, you got to play them on PC.
Microsoft isn't releasing stuff on only Xbox, so that allows us. We don't have to have an Xbox.
Yeah, but I just feel like for like outside of the hardware publishers, mm-hmm. The Square Enixes, the Segas, these types of companies, they're absolutely going to start putting things on every platform available, at least PC. I feel like, especially because we've saw as of late Sony do quite well in that realm.
And they're gonna, and maybe that's what we see more of. Like Sony does delayed releases on PC, and then
with the exception of Helldivers, which did very well for them.
I was actually going to bring up Helldivers. I saw a metric. Helldivers outsold God of War Ragnarok. It's kind of interesting.
That's not shocking to me at all, though.
No, because it became a sensation, and it's a if you become a hit and you are a competitive multiplayer game, I think that just automatically brings you millions more players than being a hit for being a really good God of War game. It's just a different thing.
Yeah. Helldivers 2 is an experience tailor-made for a PC.
Yeah.
And I think it would be hard to argue that experience is better on PlayStation than it is on the PC. You just can't. That game is made for PC, even though Sony will tell you that it was made for their console.
Those codes might be easier on a controller, but
they are. I can't confirm because I played the first one exclusively on console and was like, I don't have problems. And then we get on the PC version of Helldivers 2, and I'm like, I'm struggling.
It's like, Jared, are you gonna bring me back? And you just nah. It's like what do we do?
I'm having a hard time. It's like I'm over there, and then I like fat finger, and I'm like, God damn it.
That's a good game that we need to check back on before the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got some whiskey in front of us, so some Stellar Blade, all kinds of stuff. Thanks. All right, we're back. We've got some we got Scotch and a bourbon in front of us. We've mentioned it before on the podcast, kind of before we started a video. So, but in Utah, we generally get kind of screwed when it comes to booze, but occasionally, there are ways for us to benefit. And one, they only mark up by a set amount because it's by the state, and then they essentially tell us when the good stuff comes in or the rare things, and you can go enter drawings, or you can literally. Most recently, they said, we got a bunch of E.H. Taylor. Here's how many bottles. They're going to these stores. It'll be there Saturday. So it really just allows you to say, well, I'm going to go, like in both of our cases, around 2.5 hours before they open and get in line. Mm-hmm. So we did that. We did that on Saturday to try to get our hands on. I mean, for me, it was any E.H. Taylor. There was a chance we would get the barrel proof, which I guess is that's the king.
Outside of their limited releases like Grain of the Gods and things like that, which are like thousands of dollars. That's the barrel proof is the most desirable in their core line of products. Yes.
So neither of us got that. They only had a handful at each store, and the people lined up. I heard that they were there at 1 a.m, so they were around 10 hours early. But I did go 2.5 hours early, and I got a single barrel, which I was really happy about. And I've actually been looking for an E.H. Taylor for quite some time. I told Jared and another of my friends that travels around, that's just like, hey, if randomly you see one and want to give it to me after you buy it, let me know. Which is
a hard thing to do because
they're hard to find.
You're not finding these bottles everywhere.
But we both got one, and we've got the single barrel here today. This is my first really proper try of it. I had a tiny sip when I got home, but it was like 11 a.m. So I was just like, well, I'm not sitting down for some scotch right now. I had like just a little bit, and I was like, okay, that's so heading in the right direction. What are your overall thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a damn good product, so just the single barrel is just going to be obviously a single barrel of their small batch. And then it's aged a little bit longer. So they're picking barrels from a specific part of their rick house for their single barrel. So they're very curative in terms of what barrels get picked for single barrels and what barrels are going to go for their small batch. So that's the biggest difference between them. Mm-hmm. But, the E.H. Taylor is a fantastic product, and that's why it is so hard to find because people love it. I think it is quintessential bourbon. The flavors that you get from this bottle are very complex, very deep. There's just a lot of different flavors, front, mid, and end palate. And I think it's a fantastic product. So
it tastes like a really well-balanced product.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a really, if this was readily available, it's the type of thing I would just want to have on my shelf.
Yeah.
Like where we've talked about stuff like the Caribbean cast, where you're like, that's just one that should always be here.
Yeah.
This is kind of falls into that realm. I like it quite a bit because they're so hard to find. I'm not really going to drink it very often because I want to get another one in the chamber before I can drink through it. But if I was to get another one, I would probably try to sit down and really understand this a little more. But I'm happy with it. Like, obviously for us, we're in a fortunate spot here because this was $70 for us.
Right.
And out of state, it looks like it's right around $200. And that's a harder sell.
It's $200 at the low end, right?
Yeah.
It's all at the discretion of the liquor store that gets it. And, from the perspective, like there's a lot made of people getting really upset about liquor stores, like mom and pop liquor stores marking up these Buffalo Trace products.
Yeah.
But like, you have to take it like, yes, some of it's outrageous. Like if someone's like marking this bottle for like $500, like that's crazy. But they're only getting so many of them in a given year. It's not like they've got cases and cases of the shit. And, I think Buffalo Trace is trying to work on that to a certain extent, but like also,
are they?
Yeah, they built a like a giant ancillary facility to increase production like tenfold.
It seems like what they're doing is making like putting this on shelves everywhere is going to drastically change the impression of the product. Like,
yes,
right? Like they are the talk of the town because you can't find any of this shit.
True.
And that's a pretty big benefit.
Mhm.
Nothing they make right now stays. And if they push that too far, I don't know that they even want to. Even if it is a little bit easier, I think that the scarcity argument is probably real for what the position they're in. But that's just me running my mouth.
But yes, like the markups at out of state liquor stores are going to be high on a bottle like this. Like, yeah, it might like 200. Like if you were out of state, like 200 would be a great price for this bottle. You would be like, yeah. Excuse me, would be like, yeah, this is a great price. Like I buy that. Yeah, exactly. But we're in like a unique position where I think like MSRP is like 60 some odd dollars on this bottle, and then they mark it up $10 and we get to reap the benefits. But
don't be too jealous of us, because just so you know,
that's what I was gonna say.
Our Bacardi's marked up, and we pay more for basic shit than any of you guys do.
And we also can't get Everclear anymore here.
Really?
Yeah, they just outlawed it.
Okay.
Yeah. So no more Everclear in Utah, which like I'm totally okay with. Like that is not a redeemable product and like has no use case outside of like getting ripped in college.
Well, yeah, that's just it. It goes into the huge plastic bin of fruit.
I'm like, pretty sure that's why they outlawed it. Because I'm sure they looked at the sales data and they were just like, it's either like very like young 21-year-olds that are buying it, or like 50-year-olds that are then like selling it to young people. Young 21-year-olds. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think anybody's like,
radiator.
Man, I had a hard day at work today. I'm gonna go and sit down and make myself a nice cocktail with fucking Everclear.
This proof's just a little up, right?
Well, it's bottle and bond, so it's got to be 50%.
Oh, got it.
So it's 100 proof. That's one of the characteristics of bottle and bond. So yeah, it's a little bit of a higher, not like super high proof, but a little bit higher than what you would see with some of the other products on the market in the bourbon category. But yeah, it's just a quintessentially good product that I think deserves the hype that it receives. Some of them that get a lot of notoriety from Buffalo Trace, I do not think are worth the hype. Definitely not. But something like this, as long as they keep the quality up, even if they improve production on it, like, I mean, it would be nice to walk into a store and have like a 50-50 chance to get a bottle of E.H. Taylor. But we probably are very far away from that.
I guess even if it was like, it feels like in the last 6 months, Blanton's has been more available, at least in Utah. Mm-hmm. And even if it was there, because there's been some times where I've been like, oh, there's 5 bottles over here. Mm-hmm. That would be kind of nice if it wasn't such a race. Like literally, it's kind of crazy. Like that one, people got there at 1 a.m. For that one, I get, but then I was like 30th in line, 2.5 hour wait. By the time they were opening, the line was 100 people. Right. Like that's a big draw. And it's not one, we didn't go to the same liquor store, you and I. This was all across basically the valley.
Yeah. And St. George.
Yeah. There's like 9 different ones. My wife was hitting me up. She's like, so which one do you think's the best one to go to? And I was like, I don't think it matters.
I think they're all going to be full of people. So let's talk a little bit about our experiences, because we had to wait in line for a long period of time. We should have coordinated. We
didn't sync up enough to wait in the same line.
Yeah, we should have hung out together. It would have been much better if we just got to hang out together for a few hours. But we stood in lines that were different. And generally my experience was like, okay, like all the people there were very friendly that I was around, at least. And it was a good mix. Like the people that I were next to were definitely buying these to drink them. But there was also, like, you could tell a couple of people that were like, I don't think you're going to drink this. Like, I think you're going to immediately put it on Facebook and mark it up to secondary price and try to flip it. And, there's no way to combat that. That's just a part of this process. And like, if you wait in line, you deserve to get a bottle, but it sucks. It's not great because it's like, surely there was 6 bottles of the barrel proof and like, yeah, there's probably a couple of people that are going to actually enjoy that bottle and good for them for, sitting. But I think there's also a lot of people in that group that are going to be like, nah, I'm not fucking drinking this. I'm going to sell it.
They already moved it.
Yeah.
And it's just shitty. It's not and I have, for the record, I have scalped things in my past, but I just, I can look at this and like,
I have not. I've just never had it in me to do it.
Yeah, I've done it with consoles. I haven't done it recently with consoles, but I did it with consoles. And I look at it in hindsight and say, I also made a lot less money. Like there were times in college that I did it. And as a poor college student, it drastically changed my weekend experience to have that extra money. So I will. And I sold an Xbox 360, so I legit know it's a doctor, and I just didn't feel bad about it. But I don't do it anymore. So
until the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, and then Nick's gonna have his Etsy set up with.
I don't know, man.
But
my line was fine.
Yeah, I got really sunburned, like on one side of my body, which is pretty hilarious. It was not good from that perspective, really kind of sucked. And I didn't think about it clearly. I thought like kind of naively that I would get there early enough that I could just like watch the line and then hop in close to opening and still have a chance at one of these bottles. That's not the way it worked, because I got there and then it was just like, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I was just like doing the math in my head and I was like, I got to get in now if I want a shot at actually having a bottle of this stuff, any bottle of E.H. Taylor. And so, I stood there for a long period of time, but it was fine. And I think that now going through the experience, we will do better in the future. We might meet up at the same place. Also,
it'd be nice to not have to worry about a bathroom. Like I knew I was going there early, and I really, really enjoy drinking my coffee in the morning.
Yeah,
and I specifically barely had any coffee because I'm just like,
I don't want to shit my
this
pants
is not going to work out well.
Right,
and if you and I were there with chairs, we could have just not had to worry about that.
Yeah, it's like I gotta go to the bathroom, watch the chair. Bringing a chair is a must, absolutely. But I definitely want to do this. I mean, because it's every third week of the month. Yep. So that gives you enough time to kind of recharge. I feel like if you were doing this every weekend, it wouldn't be tenable. But I can do it one weekend out of the month if there's a bottle that I really want to get my hands on. So
that's the thing. If they've got, I just recently kind of caught wind of this last month. I didn't realize it was happening, but I want to see what the next month is. And it might be exciting. Might be a fun way for us to actually easily get our hands on stuff.
Where's the Scotch releases at?
Scotch doesn't. I don't think that's front of mind in the States. Like that, there's not that chase. Like there's an absolute bourbon chase is a thing, and that's not something we talk about here. If it happens, I don't.
It happens. It happens.
Is it even possible here? Like, what is the like?
Well, it depends on where you live.
It's just hard to know. Like, I only recently got into bourbon, and I immediately know like a lot of what is rare and you're chasing. And on the Scotch side, I can't tell you. Like maybe you're in your head, you're like, oh, these are the 6 that I'm looking for. Like I know I can't get Campbelltown, but those are in other places on some shelves.
Yeah,
but I just don't know what those sought after ones even are.
I think they're more, it's not the like core line like it is with bourbon. Like the bourbon is in a unique place where it's like the core line on some of these products is extremely hard to find. Scotch, it's more the like limited release stuff, where the distilleries are putting out like 3 to 4 like yearly releases that are just for that period of time. And those are the ones that are hard to get. Those are the ones that I would like to get.
It's that shit you can get if you go to Campbelltown during like their month of party. Like they do like a festival thing for a week or something like that. I bet that's
I think the most prolific that I can think of is Ardbeg. Ardbeg does all sorts of fucking crazy like one-off releases, and there is absolutely a community that goes ravenous and tries to find all of those bottles as soon as they drop. You have to be a fan of fucking very peaty whiskey, but
Sure.
Ardbeg does a very good job of marketing their product. They do really cool stuff around that. So it exists. I just don't think that it is as in demand as bourbon is in the United States.
Well, you've brought a bottle of Scotch, and why don't you tell me a little bit about it? It's from Isla, so we just buckle up, and we're gonna go and we're gonna get our peat on, presumably.
Yeah, maybe. That's kind of a misnomer. Like, not always are you going to get like a really heavy peated product from Isla. Like, there are some examples, like Bruichladdich is a good example. They make a product that is not peated. They obviously do peated products as well. But yeah, so this is Bunnahabhain is what it's called, which is a great name in my opinion. It's got a very pretty kind of storied history. A lot of people that like Isla's a lot love Bunnahabhain. And I've never had a bottle of it. It's fairly hard to find. I've seen it here before, but it's not like you can't just go to the store and just pull it off the shelf. Like, it seems like it comes and goes. And so
did you just open this? Have you tried this?
I haven't tried it yet.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, I just opened it before I got here, or well, when I got here, I should say. And so, yeah, like, people love it. They do make like quite a few different bottles. This is like not their lowest end stuff. This is like mid-range, their 12-year. So yeah, like, just give it
This is a
very,
nice,
very light on the peat.
Yeah, this isn't like some of the Lafroigs and the Lagavulin that I've had and the Ardbeg. This is quite a bit less than that. I think it's got pretty nice balance. Maybe a little more than some Campbelltowns I have, but I really like it. I like peat. I like heavily peated. But I think that this is delicious. This is a good thing. I'm gonna pour a little more in here.
Yeah, go for it.
Like I poured too little.
The captain on the front, people in the whiskey community kind of like make jokes and he has like a name. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's pretty funny.
We don't have any of this in Utah, right? I haven't seen it. I've
seen it before, but it's not readily available.
Got it.
So yeah, I got this bottle in San Francisco while I was there. And they're just really like, I went to the store that my girlfriend buys whiskey for me when she goes on business often.
The one you guys have talked about?
Cask.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like I gotta go there.
It's sweet. It's cool. It's in the Financial District. It's very like upscale, and their selection is incredible, but they mark their products up pretty significantly if it's a desirable bottle. They had
good stuff, but you're gonna pay for it.
Yes, they had Weller there. They had the Weller Full Proof and the Weller 12. Those are like $80 MSRP. They were both like $400. So
do you have any of the higher Wellers?
I have the Weller Antique 107, which we've tried on this podcast before.
Okay.
That is largely considered by most people to be the best one.
Where I was going with it is I actually want to compare, because we have like the baseline Weller. Both of us have a bottle of it. I would really like to have the two next to each other, because that's kind of the fun part. Because like that baseline Weller is not, it's just lowercase fine. I don't have any problems with it.
I think it's a fantastic product for what it is.
Yeah, it's not a I'm gonna go wait in line for product. Yeah.
No.
A friend of ours said, "Do you want a bottle of this? Is this much?" And we said, "Yeah."
Yeah,
and that worked out well.
Yeah, I think we paid like $30 extra, and I had just found one in Kentucky for MSRP, so I was just like, might as well, because I know I like it. It's good. And if it's at $30 to $50. 60 maybe is pushing it, but that's what we paid for it. I would say that's worth it. But the higher end Weller products are fantastic. Weller Antique 107 is very good. The Full Proof and the 12. I've had the Full Proof in Kentucky at a restaurant. It was fucking incredible. It's usually 107 and then Full Proof are the ones that people go like batshit crazy for. Some people will say CYPB is one of the better ones, but a CYPB is like, that's like a fucking unicorn, a ghost of a unicorn. Like, you're not going to find it, and if you do, you're going to pay a pretty penny for it. So we need to keep our eye on the the list because their
sure.
Weller products are going to drop. And that's the thing with Weller. Like, yeah, I think that, like I said, the general consensus is 107 is usually the one that people want the most. But if you can get anything in their higher line, if you like weeded bourbon, like it's good stuff.
Yeah. I just, one thing we haven't really done on this podcast is kind of compared the catalog and be like, well, this is the one I prefer of this. Like, if we had other EH Taylors, like you've brought the small batch on here and we had it, and it's just kind of that could potentially be pretty interesting. I read some reviews and some people were like, I think the small batch is more complex from the single barrel because it's a blend, right? And it's an interesting discussion to have to see where we would fall on some of those comparisons.
The single barrel at the World Whiskey Competition like 2 years ago, the single barrel actually beat a Pappy Van Winkle 23 year in a blind.
No,
I'm not joking. So
that's pretty.
Which 23-year-old Pappy may be one of the hardest bottles to find in all of whiskey. And, this $70 bottle fucking beat it.
That's why I think it's kind of interesting to compare some of those from the same distillery for sure.
This fucking shit is good.
Yeah.
This is very much more
Campbelltown
than it is Isla, in my opinion. It's that sweet with a little bit of peat, which I like quite a bit. So.
That and everything Campbelltown's so good. What's the price range on this guy?
I think it's like $70 to $80.
That's the spot. That's the
I think I paid 80.
My favorite, that's just I guess I have a favorite price range, but that's just like where I've with Scotch.
My favorite price range is free.
I've just found that like for quality to cost, I've always found right where between 70 and $100 is right around where I can just be like, yeah, that's right in the stuff I like. Of course, I like some of the bottles I have that are a lot more money, but then it's just not. You got to try to balance it.
They had
what are we doing here?
They had a 15-year for $180.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, after trying this, I'm like, maybe need to bring more of the Captain into my collection.
Because that's exactly what I was saying. It'd be super interesting to compare those two. Because there's always a chance that one of us would be like, you know what, I prefer the 12.
Well,
like,
here's the thing, Nick. We can make that happen because my collection is pretty vast and there are many different bourbons that I have or Scotch that I have where I've got like the full fucking range.
For sure.
So if you want to do that, we can do it.
It'll be a whole new show we're going to come up with here. You know,
we just put blindfolds on and like this one's a little bit more malty.
There is an argument to force it to be blind, right? Like you need to. We'll make my wife come in here and pour them, and because it probably should be blind.
Yeah, we need to get some Glencairns. Do you have any Glencairns?
Are those?
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking hard about some glassware on some of that. I kind of want like some Collins glasses and things, but I need to navigate where are these going. So
you can
as I'm making more cocktails. As much as I love these glasses and love putting every cocktail into it, like clearly there's
doesn't work for everything.
There's something I make them just like it's supposed to be in a coupe. Where is it? You know, like what?
Need a fucking coupe for this, man.
What is this? So I don't know. I just need to figure out where this stuff goes. But why don't you tell me about Indika? You sent me a message, or I asked you kind of like what we were looking at this week, and you mentioned this game. I had not heard of it. And then I went and Googled it just briefly, and I was like, this thing looks really interesting. I have not played it at all.
Okay.
But if you go and it's just there's no way you can go read the description of it and be like, wow, that sounds like a dud. It really sounds interesting to me.
It is incredibly interesting. That's an understatement. So yeah, Indika is a weird game, like definitely weird. The basic premise of the game.
PC? Is it PC only?
It's on console as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. This is a perfect use case for Game Pass, and the fact that it's not on Game Pass is fucking outrageous. Yeah. It's a $25 game, which is a little bit high for the length. There's not a lot of replayability that is here either. It's kind of a one and done thing. Like I can't imagine you, unless you're like an achievement chaser, wanting to play this multiple times. It's like you get what you get out of it, and that's it. So the fact that it's not on Game Pass is insane, and like hopefully Phil Spencer is giving someone there a tongue lashing and trying to get it on to the platform, because it's tailor made for that. It's a very small curated experience. I will say that even though it's a little bit pricey, I would like to see this game at $15. I understand why it's $25. The production value here is high. This game looks really good on a high-end PC. It runs pretty well. It's a little rough around the edges in certain cases, but
like janky or what
it's just just like visual jank, like nothing like game breaking or anything like that. But there's just like some weird things that happen with some of the character models that are a little janky. But
remind me of the premise. I remember reading about a nun.
Yeah, so you play as a character called Indika.
Okay.
She is a nun in this like alternate reality version of like early 1900s Russia. And she's at a nunnery, which is the best thing to say. Nunnery.
It's a good word. It is.
Yeah.
I've been at the nunnery all day. What do you do there?
I was posted up at the nunnery.
Yeah.
I don't know. You do nun stuff. You pray to God and do all these things. But
okay.
So the premise is that you are a nun in this nunnery, and Indika is not well liked. All the other nuns do not get down with Indika, and so she's basically the black sheep.
She's like an outcast.
Absolutely.
She go against the grain or something?
No, it's very kind of. It's not like well fleshed out why they don't like her, but they do really good ways to like show you why they don't like her, because she's like intentionally annoying as fuck, and just kind of not like a great character. She's a great character, but she's not a great character to be around. She's kind of insufferable. She talks a lot. She doesn't stop talking. And like there are interactions in the game with her and other characters where you can tell that like they're just getting fucking pissed off at her. So the goal of these nuns is to get rid of Indika. So they task her with this like inter-country travel extravaganza expedition to deliver a letter to like this like area where they've got this like super established what's the best way? It's like a church essentially that she's taking this to. Yeah.
Monastery.
I'm not explaining that well because I don't know anything about religion.
Okay. Don't come to us for your religion talk.
Yeah. Not my strong suit. But yeah, so she essentially is given this letter, and it's like the nuns are clearly like, let's get rid of fucking Indika.
Get her out of here for 6 months.
Yeah. And the environment is war torn. There are some references to a war between America and Russia, and it seems like things are real bad.
So it's like an alternate reality.
It's an alternate reality that is like infused with steampunk
great
things.
That's cool.
So there's like a lot of steampunk. There's this fucking wacky bike scene where you ride this bike that is powered by steam, and it's a bike that does not exist in reality, but it is a brilliant and fascinating sequence where
are you in typical nun attire?
You're in a nun attire. She's in nun attire. And so like you start, that's like the basic premise of the game is she's going on this like this journey to deliver this letter, and along the way she starts having this like, not dissimilar to Hellblade, she has this like inner dialogue with herself and the devil. And the devil is essentially breaking down her kind of understanding of religion and seeding doubt of her faith as she's on this trip. So very clearly, these guys, I'm pretty sure these guys are Polish or Russian, one of the two that developed this game. Very clearly seems like this was made by somebody that was involved heavily in religion for a long period of time in their life, and then came to this like kind of turning point in their life where they were like, this just doesn't make any sense. And faith is not enough for me to continue to believe in this stuff, right? And so it's a very like metaphysical debate within herself, and it is posed as the devil, but there are some things that the game alludes to that makes it seem like it's just her having this like inner conversation with herself about the way she feels about religion and like the things that human beings feel naturally that religion tries to suppress. Lust and the desire to have sex, and these things that religion definitely frowns upon outside of marriage. And so she's obviously this nun, so she's like been raised up in this society that is very pious, but then also there is like some backstory into her life prior to becoming a nun, and you start to learn that it maybe wasn't like completely her choice to become a nun. And so that makes it even more kind of complex from that perspective. But this is absolutely not a game that you go in to play and be like, I'm having fun. Like, it's a game that you go into
it
like
sounds narrative only.
There's gameplay elements to it, but a lot of it is absolutely story driven. I think it's really well done from that perspective. I think the voice acting is excellent in this game, and the like I said before, like the way that this thing looks is incredible. It looks really good. So the gameplay loop though is kind of interesting. I mean, it's very puzzle heavy, so you're solving puzzles throughout the game. That's really all that you're doing, is just going from one area to the next, solving some sort of like fairly complex puzzle to progress, right? And then there is also some like very strangely 8-bit integrated sequences in this game that come out of fucking nowhere, and you're like, what is happening?
It's random.
Yeah, you do like all of the story elements that are tied to her past before she became a nun is all done in 8-bit. So, and it's fascinating and very, very cool from that perspective. It's not super complex, but the way that it kind of shakes out is you get a little bit of backstory into what her life was before becoming a nun. And then there's like a mini game associated with those sequences, all of which kind of pull from like classic games like Pac-Man, Frogger, like old school racing, like isometric racing games, like things like that, platformers. There's some platforming sections. It's all really well done. It looks really good too, during the 8-bit sequences. But and then anything that's like in present time is going to be in this like very pretty modern visual design. So that's basically the crux of the gameplay. There's some really cool visual elements that I would like to highlight. I am not complete. I didn't like go and look at like what's going on in this game after I played it.
Credits,
I just finished it today, so like I didn't have time to do that like pretty recently, and I kind of had to head here.
It's like my favorite thing to do on any sort of game with any sort of story going on, whether it's a B tier or like great story. I fucking love that moment where I'm like, we can open the gates to any spoilers and every like Alan Wake 2 is a pretty good example where you're just like, tell me everything. Well, what are all the theories? That shit, it's like feed it into my veins. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, definitely. But I didn't do that on this. I'm going to do that
sure.
Because I was like pretty engaged in the story. I think that it goes places and is interesting. And at its core is just like a morality tell, and also like a pulling down of religion. Like this is like a very not like
sounds great.
Not like aggressively pulling down religion. Like it's not super on the nose with that kind of stuff. But behind the scenes, I would say I absolutely is like this is what the designers intended for you to like kind of question if you're a religious person. Maybe why? Because a lot of this doesn't make a lot of sense. And so, it's cool from that perspective. But like, so there's some, I don't know if this is like actually why it was designed the way that it is. But one thing that's just very strange about it is animals in this game. There is some interaction with like animals environments and throughout the game. And all of the animals are massive, like huge. So towards the end of the game, you go through a caviar canning plant, and
random. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Russia's known for it. Like,
Sure.
a lot of caviar comes from Russia. But you're in this plant, kind of like platforming and solving puzzles. But the like you start out like a Star Wars trash chute sequence where you go into like the bottom and you're in this like area with caviar everywhere. And the caviar is like bigger than Indika, like just giant caviar, right? And once you start going out into the caviar plant, you start seeing like all of these fish strung up in like conveyor belts and things like that are being harvested, but they're like the size of buildings. Like they're massive fish, like giant fish. And you're like, what the fuck is happening right now? But
that trout's wild.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. That's really the way it is. But I think that I don't know, but I think that they're like tying on like to the biblical, like these animals are of biblical proportion. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting from that perspective.
I mean, does the fish have anything else going on? I mean,
there's like
that's a pretty common symbol within religion. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, like there's like straight up puzzles that involve the fish, which is really cool. And it works. Like it all works pretty well, I would say. But yeah, just from a visual perspective, this thing is very, very cool. Some of the things I don't like about it, though, pretty obtuse solutions to puzzles, where I was just like, I have no idea what to do. Like it was one of those games where I was like, I have no fucking clue. There is no, it doesn't gamify this. So there's no like, blinking lights saying like, hey, this is something you need to,
it's linear progression. So it's like, now you got to do this. Puzzle.
You got to do this to progress. Yeah. And so some of it really took some time to figure out. Where the game really shines in terms of the puzzle design is anything. They do this really cool thing where, like I said, Indika is having this like inner dialogue with herself, but then the devil, who is narrated by whoever the dude is, it's fantastic. He's got this really creepy voice and he does a great job, but he'll start like kind of, again, like planting seeds of doubt inside of her mind about the things that she thinks of the world. And she'll have breakdowns at certain points in time. There are points in the game where the devil will get to her and the entire environment will like split apart and this like giant chasm will open up in the environment that is essentially hell, and he'll start saying like really crazy shit and none of it's bad. That's the thing that's like kind of crazy. Like he's just like advocating for being more of like a human being, and rather than following like this really like strict path of religion. And that's the most interesting thing about it, is just like in a way, like obviously and he's grotesque. You see the devil a couple of times in the game and he's fucking terrifying and he is. And you're like, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But then he's also like, for the most part, advocating for like pretty reasonable things. And so you kind of have this like, this weird kind of dilemma.
Tell you about UBI and why we need to do that. This shit. I'm telling you, it's going to help everyone. It's absolutely something you need to think about.
It's not so much that as much as it's like, why are you not engaging in basic human practices? And the idea that you're fighting these things that are hardwired into you as a human being does not make you a terrible person. And like, why are you still struggling with this as much as you possibly are, where you could just be living a better life, generally speaking, is more what he's doing. But again, going back to what I was talking about, she has this breakdown where she can't, at certain points during these puzzles, where she can't like deal with him anymore. And that's when the environment opens up and like the gates of hell open up, essentially. It's very cool. And it splits environments that you're traversing in half, right? And the only way that you can reconnect them is he just talks like just goes and goes and says like all this shit to her. And you have, like press E to pay respects. There's press right click to pray, and she'll pray. And when that happens, it closes the gaps, right? And so there is very very smart puzzles that are integrated into that, where you'll have to listen to him talk, and then you close the gap so you can traverse these chasms and then get to places you couldn't otherwise, and then stop praying, he starts talking again, and that's how you traverse through the puzzle. It's very cool. And the highlight of the game for me were the puzzles that implemented that. There are not a lot of them in the game, like 2 or 3.
How long was this game?
So you can finish it in like 5 hours.
Oh yeah.
But it's brilliant the way that stuff kind of works. And then, you know, as things progress, you run into a character that you're with for a large portion of the game, who is a escaped convict, and he's got this gross, like, rotting arm that he needs to get removed.
Great.
And he doesn't want to get it removed. But then there's also like this sexual attraction that Indika has to him. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff that comes from that kind of ties into this. The ending of it's weird, and definitely one of the things that I kind of want to do some research on and see what people think.
Like, you need to go Google the
I mean, it's pretty straightforward ending, but it leaves a lot to interpretation, I would say.
Sure.
But it's cool. This game is cool. I would recommend it for the length that it is. Like, it's not knocking, you know, it out of the park, but also I think that it poses some very interesting questions. And I've seen a lot of people saying, like, it does what it sets out to do. And I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we're talking about religion, which is like it is fundamentally based on the fact that, like, you can't see or feel any of this stuff, yet you believe in it, and that's your faith. Like, your faith in this thing, it trumps your doubt of not actually having any tangible visual elements of it.
Reality.
Yes, Nick. Yes. Trying to be a little, trying to tiptoe around this a little bit, but yes. And so that would be like, I've seen people saying it does a really good job of tearing it down. And I would argue that it does not, because it's just like, it does a good job at attempting to, but I think that it's a much more complex thing than that.
Well, it's not an easy thing to do.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it is.
So it's understandable.
We have thousands of years of history to prove that it is not an easy thing to do.
It's understandable that someone can go out and set out to do something like that and maybe fall short or not effectively do it as well as it could be done.
I appreciate that they are attempting it, though.
I find it super interesting that you're just in the month of playing games with mental anguish, and we're just gonna move. You had Hellblade last episode, and you've got Indika this one, and presumably you are going to be playing Hellblade 2. I assume, when it comes out. Mm-hmm. So we got to line up that 4 for 4. You just go ahead and think about
I don't know what that says about me right now.
I don't know where you are in your life. But
I'm doing all right in my life, but I will say that that's just like in previous years, like, I would not touch this thing, because it's just not my type of game. It's much more your type of game than it is my type of game. But they did a good thing with, like, you know, the things that I read about it leading up to release and people talking about it after release. I was like, this seems something
that's pretty
cool that I might be into. And I was generally into it. I think that this is not like I don't think this is in like contention for Game of the Year territory for me. It's not going to make my list, but I think it's worth playing through, and you can, because it's in my Steam library. So it's
probably something I should look at, because it, like you say, it really sounds like it's up my alley. And that can I play that on the Steam Deck and is that okay, or should I put that on the big
I don't know. It's pretty visually
All
impressive. It's a pretty big file size. I think it's like 60 gigs or something like that. So it might chug on the Steam Deck.
All right, that's fine. I finished up Stellar Blade. We've covered most of what we need to talk about. I don't think we need to talk about the controversial aspects of that game. We covered thoroughly. What I would say is kind of similar to Lies of P, is that some of the best boss fights are at the end of this game, and where I chugged through most of this game and didn't have to deeply engage with the parry mechanic. I was doing the parry, but the way it works is every time you like had a perfect parry, you would be chipping down this gauge, and then you could do extra damage. and the gauge was really large, and a lot of times, like by the time I got it close, like they'd just be dead because I was doing so much damage, and which isn't necessarily a criticism. It's just how the game worked up until that point. But those a couple of those last bosses really made you learn the skill set, and I appreciate that. I really like when that happens. And I thought they were very good. They were a lot of fun. Generally, I'm glad I played through the game. Story is what it is. I will. Where are you at with spoilers? You do not want me to spoil anything?
Yeah, I would hold off.
That's fine.
Because I feel like I'm close enough to finish it.
I can hold off that. Jenna, I would play the next one. Right. I think my biggest criticism of the game is that if you really want to refine the fighting style, is that parry gauge probably should have just been made more important for some bosses, because you never had to do it. And I think they should have had some bosses that's like, you're never going to do enough damage. You're never going to do enough chip damage if you don't whittle down.
Yeah, like Sekiro.
Yeah, exactly. Where they're like, you have to do it. And I think if they'd done that, it would have maybe given a little more depth to some of the fights.
Or even the last ones that you don't have to do that. Like
you have to, because they will kill you. Like, so by design, like I absolutely was learning the kit. I wasn't necessarily, the bulk of my damage wasn't necessarily from getting that to 0 and doing that special attack, but I felt like I was absolutely learning the kit better than I had in the previous ones.
I felt like organically I was doing that, like as I learned like the patterns of just like basic enemies.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I was parrying to the point where I would get them in that state where I could just hit triangle and kill them immediately. And that's very satisfying, because it's like I'm parrying everything that you're throwing at me, and now you're in this broken down state where you're dead immediately. So I felt like that with the base enemies, and then some of the bosses I would get them down because I parry enough, but like it wasn't a necessity.
And from what I've read, there is the new game plus mode is quite good. It adds stuff to the skill tree, and you can turn up the difficulty, and that would be pretty compelling. I'm not gonna do that, but maybe that would help and force you to engage with some of those mechanics a little more. Overall, I'm pretty high on the game. I thought it was a fun palate cleanser game to play through. It wasn't terribly difficult. I mean, it's not like a fun game. It's not like quite one of those. I generally cruise through it, but good game, fun game. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah, we do not have a lot of video games to look forward to.
No, they need to announce some shit, but there are strong rumors of PlayStation holding a show in May, and Xbox has something on the calendar in June. So in the next one or two Gamescasts, maybe we're talking about some other games coming, but what?
But in 2024,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, are they actually announcing like games that are coming out this year? Like, I have a hard time that Microsoft is announcing any bangers, because I don't believe Fable or Gears are this year. I would be really surprised if that happens. And I don't think Sony is bringing. I don't think Naughty Dog's showing up till next year, like next fall, or maybe spring. Maybe I just don't see a whole lot happening, but you never know. Things come out, things surprise us. I do think we probably play Hollow Knight this year, so that's
I fucking hope so. Jesus Christ.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. That was going back to the Animal Well discussion. I was just like, I just want a sword.
Yeah.
I just want some like combat in this game,
For sure. We need more games on the calendar, absolutely. And I really hope that happens. And I think that the Switch not hitting this year, that's just kind of a bummer, but maybe next year's just gonna all line up and we're gonna be like, wow, look at all this shit.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like we're getting the PlayStation Pro this year, the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Are they really gonna release it with nothing attached?
That's what I was gonna say. Like, is there anything that they're going to announce that's gonna utilize the new step up in hardware?
Be an Astrobot or something.
Astro's Playroom.
They're gonna do that, or like a Knack 3.
Like a Knack 3.
I don't know. Like,
yeah. No, that's This is the rumor that's been swirling around recently about Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil. Have you heard
Resident
about
Evil
this?
1 remake, but that's a little out, and then
No, the newest.
the next
the-
Resident
I think
Evil is
it's
like
9.
next January or something.
Yeah. So, but people have been talking about 9. I think that's right, 9.
Yes.
Being really like announced here pretty shortly.
That's exciting. I'd like to see what they want to do.
I have heavy rumors that it is an open world Resident Evil game.
Huh.
So
They've been lightly dipping their toe in what they did with like Village, kind of having this really central hub.
yeah,
Kind of. You could see how that was the beginning thought.
it
of
could
some
be
of that.
cool. Like depending on the way they handle it, it could be a very cool thing. But we'll have to see. But that a lot of people have been talking about it. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt that I've seen on the internet about what people kind of want from that. Yeah, remake is a remake, and that's fine. Like they've done well with pretty much all of them except for 3's remake, and that's a fine remake. I just think that game
3 is just not it though. You were dealt a bad,
right,
mediocre product.
Right.
1 remake would be cool.
1 remake would be very cool, but that game is like very. I think it would be difficult to really garner the same level of like appeal.
It's not that big.
It's not that big. It's all contained into the manor for the most part. And, you know, by modern sensibilities, some of that puzzling and things like that is kind of archaic and basic. So like, I feel like you'd need to add something to that to really make it compelling.
I mean, I played that it was before we started this podcast, but I played that. They did a remaster type deal, and I played it. That one.
But that was like, I mean, it was bordering on a remake in the GameCube version, PlayStation 4 version of it.
But it just made the backgrounds look great.
Yes.
Like they looked
and the
really
character
good.
models were a lot. They did a lot of work on the character models too.
Interesting.
They actually had hands. It wasn't just like blocks. You know what I mean?
Hopefully we get some stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we get some stuff. I would definitely, I mean, I'm looking at Microsoft, honestly. I can't really think of a lot of things that Sony, I want to see come out of Sony. I'd like to see a couple of new IPs from Sony. That'd be cool. I don't think that the chances are very high of that happening, but it would be cool to see some new stuff from studios in their catalog of studios come up with some new stuff. Microsoft, the same thing there, but I think I'm just kind of excited to see if they're actually going to show off like a lot of these games that are already established IPs that we have been waiting a long time to like hear anything about. So
Fable's the one I'd like to see.
Absolutely. Fable is the number one video game that I want to see
Perfect Dark. We're gonna see Perfect Dark too.
I don't know about that one. Have you been hearing like it's not doing well?
And then I came back the next week and people said you've got mixed. So you had reports that were there like it's not doing well, and then you had reports that said those reports are old. It's doing well.
It's Phil Spencer wrote that up. It's doing great. Everything's good over here.
I don't. Me personally, I have an enormous amount of fun as for Perfect Dark. I played a lot of that game, had a lot of fun with it. I don't know what I need from a Perfect Dark in 2024 or 2025. I don't like what I like about that game was me and 4 friends setting up bots on multiplayer matches that were just trying to murder us, and we would like defend rooms. And I just don't see that that's what I'm getting.
I mean, Perfect Dark. I don't want to like undersell it, but it was in a lot of ways just a reskin of 007 in many ways. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. It had a lot of the same levels, but better. And then they added the like secondary fires to a lot of the weapons, which was not nothing back then, and it was quite compelling because you could have like the laptop gun and stuff like that. It was really cool. But I just don't know what that is today when you say we made a new Perfect Dark, and like I don't know, guys. But maybe if you could do it right, but you wouldn't just do it for me. But like setting up those bot matches was fucking fun. Like it was a really good time, and it was like everyone into the bathroom, and we get proximity mines on the wall, and the alien they come in and just like one shot you. It was a lot of fun.
But that kind of fun is just kind of gone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
so it's like that doesn't passed the sniff test in 2024 for like a reasonable, acceptable product. So yeah, they're kind of, and they don't have a great track record. I mean, that thing that came out on the 360 was a dumpster fire.
Zero.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing that was really interesting to me that I heard was that that Fable, the development of Fable was going pretty well, but that like the early builds of it removed like any comedy.
The humor.
It was like serious, which is like, the fuck?
Like,
what are you doing?
Did you play did you play those games? Come on. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
It's kind of the draw in a lot of ways. So yeah, we desperately need some games. But the beauty is that I've been playing 2 games that I did not talk about today that are indies, and I am very much into them. And we will definitely talk about at least one of them next show. Try to get you on board as well. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. That is gonna do it. That is Gamescast 134. So thank you for listening or / watching. We are now on YouTube. You can go find us there at Salt City Gamescast, and everywhere else. If you just want to watch us on Spotify, that's all good too. Look down in the show notes and there should be a handy link. You can come and join the Discord, and that's gonna do it. Take it easy, guys.